Welcome to Week 2 for ED 2491. The focus of this week's presentation will be classroom observations. It is the first of a series of topics that you will be completing in order to prepare you to become an effective teacher. It will also enable you to get the most out of your PROFEX experiences. I found doing classroom observations a great experience, and what I enjoyed most was watching the teacher-student connection. Now, this presentation is meant as an overview of the week and not a lecture. Its purpose is to provide you with a brief overview of what to expect with a little bit of content as well. The focus of this week will be to develop your observation skills. To do this, you'll be required to learn sophisticated observation skills that will save you from making unnecessary mistakes when you become a teacher. Observation skills will also accelerate the speed of developing teaching skills, as you will learn from experienced teachers about what to do in the teaching situation or the context and how to do it well. Now, at the end of week 2, you should be able to plan for a successful observation. You'll be able to distinguish between quantitative and qualitative data, know the difference between an observer and a participant observer, and make your own observations and inferences. You'll also be able to implement good observation practices to better understand the practice of teaching and to find out more about your learners, which is the aim of being a teacher. As this is a professional development subject, you'll be required to complete observations as part of your skill repertoire. As the week goes by, you will learn the skills to be able to design and undertake your own observations in your upcoming pracs. How exciting! So, what strategies can you do to do your PROFEX well? Well, I would ensure that I was active and self-directed, which is a necessary skill for teachers to have. You will need to work with your school-based teacher educator, which is shortened as an acronym to SBTE, by being professional, building a relationship, having clear expectations of each other, and establishing and maintaining good communication between you. All these strategies will help ensure that you get the most out of your practicum experience and will even build your connection with your teacher educator and with other teachers within the community and your students. How good would that be? Another thing you'll need to think about is what will your school-based teacher educator expect of you? In my experience, and this is supported by research, supervising teachers expect their student teachers to be knowledgeable people who have a deep understanding of the material that they are presenting and of the schooling environment. They also expect you to be a complex thinker and not easily be dismayed by the complexity of a classroom environment. They want you to be a responsive creator and an active investigator, someone who is proactive and finds solutions rather than expecting things to be delivered to them. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, they expect you to be an effective communicator and participant in the interdependent world, and a reflective and self-directed learner. These are all the skills that you will develop, but having a knowledge of them now helps make you aware of how you need to develop. But don't worry, they don't expect you to be perfect initially. You will develop these skills over time. So it's all a learning process. Now, according to Maria Montessori of the Montessori schooling system, we need to be trained to become good observers. That is, we are not just naturally good at observing, we need to be shown how to do it properly. The basic questions you need to ask yourself before you observe, and these are outlined further in your learning guide, is: who are you watching? What are you watching? Why are you watching? How are you watching? Is the data you're recording quantitative or qualitative data? How are you recording the data? And what are you going to do with all this data, and how are you going to analyse it? Going through these sequentially will enable you to become an effective observer, because you'll understand the process and you'll be able to do the observation process as effectively as possible, which is the aim. Now, one of the most complex areas to understand is the difference between quantitative and qualitative data. At first they sound very abstract, but don't worry, over time they will become a lot more clearer. I'll do my utmost to explain it. In a nutshell, quantitative data is recording what you see and hear without making judgments. And that's the key word, without making judgments. In other words, If a child puts up their hand to ask a teacher a question, or if they throw a pencil across the room, which you will see happen, you will record that data without making a judgment. If you were to make a judgment, it would sound something like, the child aggressively threw the pencil. As you can see, the word aggressively is a value judgment, and it is not objective, as we don't know why he threw the pencil and if it was aggressive. Therefore, quantitative data requires objectivity, meaning that other observers would make the same inferences as you would. It can also involve measurement of what is happening, such as tabulated data over time, for example, the use of surveys. Whereas qualitative data is describing events, interactions, issues or feelings, and thus using value-laden words, such as the child was behaving aggressively. Qualitative data is intended to describe phenomena after the data is collected. Therefore, it can describe a student's attitude and identify different viewpoints about a situation, such as we have in this classroom scenario that I just provided. So, when observing any situation, we will make selective perceptions and inferences about what we are observing. It is human nature to do this, and it cannot be eliminated, even if you tried. However, having a knowledge of our tendency to selectively perceive phenomena, or the world around us, and to make value judgments based on our perceptions, enables us to become more aware of it, and also perhaps challenge our perceptions and sometimes even change them. Now, back to what are inferences? Inferences are the meaning that we make when interpreting an observation or interpreting something. These meanings, although we can often seem quite harmless, can sometimes lead to what is called labeling. And labeling happens due to stereotypes or value judgments. For example, when we observe the child in the scenario I provided throwing the pencil, we may infer that he was doing it aggressively and then make the judgment that he is an aggressive person. If we told him he was aggressive, and many people had also been told that he was aggressive, and he knew that other people believed he was aggressive, he may even begin to be treated differently just through the use of that label. Labels also become like self-fulfilling prophecies. You probably heard of this word. And basically, it's where the individual believes the label defines who they are, and they act according to the conventions of the label. So if a child believes that they are aggressive, or that other people believe that they are aggressive, they may even start to act that way because it becomes a part of their belief system. So selective perception is interpreting information around us through a set of mental filters that we sometimes are not even aware of possessing. And these are sometimes referred to as rose-coloured glasses, where we look at the world through these rose-tinted lenses, and they influence how we see the world. Okay, so I've given you a bit of an overview of the content for this week, and now I'm going to provide you with a bit of an overview of the tutorial workshop discussion board tasks, followed by the personal journal questions. So in this week's session, you'll be asked to clarify your expectations of the classroom experience. You'll discuss as a group the following. What characteristics would a good pre-service teacher demonstrate? What would they look like, sound like, do, feel like to supervise? And what characteristics would a good supervising teacher demonstrate? What would they look like, sound like, do, feel like to the pre-service teacher? These questions are quite good because they get you to think about what you're going to expect within the classroom environment, and particularly through your observations. And in this week's personal journal, you'll reflect on what you have observed so far in the classroom environment throughout your schooling life, and maybe through your own experiences. You'll also write a short reflection on the video that you saw in this week's learning guide. You will note the kinds of things that Bailey thinks are worth observing and think about why he thinks they are worth noting. And you will incorporate a list of 6 tips about any aspect of teaching that you think would be worthwhile for you to keep in mind. So you'll reflect on the following questions. What is the difficulty in making statements about student qualities such as creativity, intelligence, ability from assessment? Next question. Think about some of the inferences that you have made about students or that have been made about you. Do you think a range of observations always supported them? Did you feel that they were fair? Again, note the kinds of things that Bailey thinks are worth observing and think about why he thinks they are worth noting. List 6 tips about any aspect of teaching that you would think would be worthwhile for you to keep in mind. And lastly, to write down the approach and some of the language that Bailey uses in critiquing someone's performance. So that basically concludes the presentation for today. If you have any further questions, please post questions about the subject or module in the frequently asked questions located in LearnJCU, or contact me directly at annalise.mitchell2@jcu.edu.au. See the sub-subject outline, the LibGuide, LearnJCU and Facebook for further contact details and information about this subject. Thank you for listening to Week 2 Classroom Observation. Next week I'll present a video for Week 3 called Learner Diversity and Inclusive Classrooms. Thank you. Bye for now.